Hello there, this is Chris and Åsa from one of the newest Rexy pods, Kingdom Swedish Rulers.
We're the Brit and the Swede that's judging and ranking all of the Swedish kings, queens and regents, from Olof Skötkonung to Carl XVI Gustav.
We run through our categories like Stormakt, investigating how good at battle or political plotting our rulers were, or Swedish Sin, where we look into the more outrageous side of Swedish royal life before seeing if our rulers are worthy of being awarded the 3 crowns, that famous symbol of Sweden.
Or if they should be mushed into a meatball. We do all this every other Sunday wherever you find your podcasts, in the weeks between releases of our other podcast, A Flat Pack History of Sweden, where we chronologically look at the broader narrative of Swedish history.
We'd love to have you with us on our journey, seeing as you already have excellent taste in podcasts.
Indeed you do, so we'll see you there. Vi ses!
Hello, and welcome to So You Think You Can Rule Persia, the podcast where we rate and review all the kings of Persia from Diocles to Yazdegerd III. I'm Sariel, and my pronouns are they, them.
And I'm Umberto, and my pronouns are he, him. Hello, everybody, and
Hello.
welcome to episode 88, Shahrbaraz. This is a new name. It's a cool name, as we will find out, and we know that this man has killed a small child to get to the throne. Cool.
He's not the first one to do it.
No, exactly. Who hasn't killed a small child to get to the throne? It's a common experience.
Well, first of all, I wanted to say that, yes, we have proved that people had other names, and now that we're, not on a dynasty, we get to find one finally. Because it can get a bit repetitive until we, change dynasties or something. Secondly, I know that he's going to do badly. Because I know that everything is terrible.
Why do you think he's going to do badly?
At the moment. We're not going to have...
You could fix it.
No, we're not going to have anybody that lasts for more than maybe a year, maybe 2 if they're lucky. Because I know that we're at the bitter end and that we have 2 or 3 more kings to go. So...
We have 4 more kings to go.
Yeah, so in a period of 10 years? So,
Well, hey, Sariel, you remember how things were going really well under Khosrow II and then they suddenly weren't? Maybe this will happen again.
That's even more disappointing. Oh, that's worse, because you give me hope and then you take it away. But also, I mean, it wasn't great last episode. To my surprise, the regent was actually doing a good job at being a regent and ruling over the empire and trying to do damage control on everything that was going on and protecting the heir. By convincing people that he either didn't exist or was a full-grown adult, which good on him. But yeah, that didn't last long because someone decided, you know what, let's take the throne for myself. Which again, in the best case scenario, incredibly hard job. If you're bad at it, you will probably be killed. If you're good at it, you're going to be so stressed.
That is true, yes. It's not fun.
And now we're not in the best of times. There's a lot of instability. You are signing your death sentence. So why?
Yes.
Why do this?
But perhaps Sariel terrain is worth ambition, though, in hell. Just decides, yeah, sure, we'll do this.
I guess we know your name
Let's
now.
try.
Congrats.
Yeah, Shahrbaraz, we remember him. He's cool. We'll find out how long his reign lasts. Does he found a new dynasty? Does he not? Things might happen. He might succeed.
So how did he
Or
get
he might
in
fail and
power?
burn
Because I have
everything.
already erased it from my memory. You can see how long this information lasts. I know that obviously he usurped the throne from our regent and our baby heir king.
Yes.
But I can't remember where he came from, who he was, and why he decided to do this.
Well, that's what today's episode is about, because unlike many other kings, Shahrbaraz is somebody for whom we have a lot of context for his pre-reign life.
Huh.
because, just to give you a brief taster, he was the head general under Khosrow leading the war against the Romans.
Right. That makes sense.
So
that
a
makes
lot
sense.
of the conquests
He's got an
are
army.
thanks to
Yeah.
Shahrbaraz. So he has a lot of legitimacy from that, and we can find out what his life is like and how it went. I mean, yeah, I'll just give a very, very brief recap on Ardashir III, mostly just to catch you up, but we will go through most of it in Shahrbaraz's life. But essentially, Ardashir III was the son of Kivad II, who was the king who killed his father, Khosrow II, the one who had this great triumphant war against the Romans and then suddenly collapsed. Ardashir was king just as a baby, so he had a regent for most of this time. The regent tried to keep things under control, but unfortunately for him, Shahrbaraz, today's protagonist, decided that he would do a much better job at being king, so he marched on Ctesiphon, took the capital, executed the regent and the baby, and made himself king of kings.
As one does.
So we'll see how well that works out for him.
Yeah.
So, let's begin. Where's Shahrbaraz from? What's his deal? Well, he was likely born in the same generation as Khosrow II, being born sometime in the 570s. So, roughly during the end of the reign of Khosrow I. So this is how far back we are. It's been a while. He is about in his late 50s, early 60s when we get to him becoming king. But Shahrbaraz isn't just a low-born random guy. He comes from one of the very noblest families because he comes from the Mihran family. The same one that Bahram Chobin comes from. Although we're not really sure about their exact relationship and their exact family dynamic, but they must have been some sort of cousin at the very least.
Yeah, so there's some link to royalty at least, right?
Yes, there are more links to royalty we'll find out in a bit, but
Oh, okay.
he does have some cards in play to be legitimate. He's not a member of the royal family, but one of his relatives became king and some strategic marriages do help him out. As for his name, Serial, Shahrbaraz isn't his birth name.
Oh.
It's actually a title.
Oh, okay.
Because it's likely that Shahrbaraz was born with the name Farrukan, but later adopted this title due to his many victories in war.
Mm-hmm.
Because Shahrbaraz means boar of the empire, with the boar being an animal strongly associated with the Yazata Bahram and victory.
Oh, I see. So the actual animal, yeah.
Yes, that's right. So it's kind of like an American general being called Patriot Eagle or something like that.
Yeah, okay.
Where it's like, yes, you win, and you're like, hell yeah, our country is great, let's do this.
I understand.
So he has a title, he's a good general, he knows. In his early years, as you could expect, Shahrbaraz joined the army and rose through the ranks to a very high office, until he was named Commander of the Armies of the Southeast after Khosrow I's reorganization. Time then passed, we went through the reign of Hormizd, and it's unlikely that Shahrbaraz joined with the rebellion of his relative Bahram Chobin or the other noble Bendoy, since he was held in high esteem by Khosrow II himself, so it's unlikely that he was a rebel.
Mm-hmm.
He was probably just one of the loyalists that helped Khosrow come back, so brilliant. That keeps him in good light. However, it could also just be that Shahrbaraz was still too junior to make an impact, so maybe they just thought, oh, he wasn't one of the main guys, so yeah, we forgive him, he's alright. Who knows? But still, this high esteem by Khosrow made sure that Shahrbaraz managed to marry a sister of Khosrow II and have at least 3 children with her.
Oh.
So one of them was a boy named Shapur, also
Classic.
sometimes called Shapur-i Shahrbaraz, because he is Shapur, son of Shahrbaraz. And 2 other children, which would later be christened as Nikitas and Nike. We saw this in the last episode. These are Christian children. One of them will become a general for the Romans, another will become married to the son of the emperor. So, pretty fancy stuff there.
Great, so I see that we're doing some Roman stuff.
Yes, exactly.
I mean, not to be xenophobic, but in the history of the Persian Empire, I have concerns.
That is reasonable. It happens. But you can see that Shahrbaraz is strongly connected to the royal family now because he is the relative of Bahram Chobin, so that gives him some legitimacy, and also he married a sister of Khosrow II. So that means that his children do have Sassanid blood in them. So that's a good sign for legitimacy, sort of pulling a
Yeah.
Darius the Great and saying, hey, no, I might not be fully legitimate, but my kids are descended from the royal line, so that's
just,
fine, actually.
get over this little blip and then we'll be back on track.
Yeah, exactly. He's 60. It's going to be
Yeah.
fine. Just wait a few years, and then my son will succeed. But we get on to the main mentions of Shahrbaraz during the last great war of antiquity, the last war between Rome and Iran, which is pretty intense, as we saw. Early on in the war, Shahrbaraz joined Khosrow in conquering Dara and Edessa during the opening moves of the war. Khosrow himself later withdrew to Mesopotamia, while Shahrbaraz remained in charge of the southern army and continued the war on his behalf, together with the other main general, a man called Shaheen. Remember the guy who was whipped after death? Him. They know each other, they're buddies.
Mm-hmm.
Our next mention of Shahrbaraz is later in 613, when he decisively defeated the newly minted Emperor Heraclius and proceeded to conquer the great city of Antioch, despite it being diminished by Khosrow I, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Shahrbaraz then met Heraclius in another battle outside Damascus, and again he managed to defeat the Romans and conquer the city. So he has a great track record. He's defeated a Roman emperor twice, he's conquered a bunch of cities, he's doing an amazing job. And this only led to further conquests, with him marching down into Palestine and conquering Jerusalem, where he took advantage of the riots between Jews and Christians of the city and managed to conquer the place, taking a bunch of relics and the fragments of the true cross that he sent over to Ctesiphon that they could be worshipped by the followers of Queen Shirin. This all culminated in the conquest of Roman Egypt between 619 and 621, where Shahrbaraz and Shaheen together decided to march off into Egypt and conquer it in just 2 years. So at last it was back in the empire, everything was looking up, nothing would ever go wrong. Hooray, hooray.
Sure. I mean, glad we got it back, I guess. That's nice.
Yeah, it's quite neat. It's good. Christian sources speak of many atrocities committed by the invading army, but we need to consider that these are biased sources, and we are told that Shahrbaraz managed to keep everything relatively under control. In particular, he stopped the violence that had been occurring between Jews and Christians in the region.
Mm-hmm.
And usually there were widespread attacks only in the face of resistance or during the initial phase of the occupation. But once the initial battles were won, Shahrbaraz was reasonable at governing and just kept order in the provinces. But, as with any army, of course, there were atrocities committed on the civilian population. That's the point of an army, to commit enough atrocities that the other side begs you to stop. So, presumably some not great things happened. So, okay, Shahrbaraz is flying high, he's doing well, he's reconquered Egypt, he is now in charge of all the West. Where do things go downhill? Well, after Egypt, Shahrbaraz was sent to Anatolia to fight Heraclius. But this time he was defeated, and the Romans managed to sneak into the Caucasus, where they proceeded to be a nuisance for a couple of years. Poor coordination between all the different Sassanid commanders who were sort of jockeying for position meant that they ended up losing that conflict, and Shahrbaraz's main camp was attacked by surprise at night, forcing him to flee with his life, apparently leaving his tent naked and alone, because that was as good as he could get out there, and that he was forced to leave his family and baggage behind, which is definitely very embarrassing for him, and a great boon to the Roman morale.
Yep, it's not great.
But Shahrbaraz didn't give up, and in the next months he managed to slowly chase Heraclius out of the Caucasus, but didn't manage to properly break his army. There was just one army, it was a small Roman army, but it was very maneuverable, very quick, and couldn't really control it that well. And this is when we get to the dramatic culmination of the war, the siege of Constantinople. Because Shahrbaraz was in charge of taking the great city together with the Avar nomads, with him on the Asian side of the city and the Avars on the European side. As we saw in Khosrow's episode, the Roman navy dominated the sea here and made communications between the two sides very difficult, which stopped Shahrbaraz from helping out the Avars with the Sassanid siege warfare. Despite this, the Sassanids tried to cross the strait, but their rafts were destroyed by the Roman navy, which forced Shahrbaraz to just sit there and watch the Avars and hope that they succeeded. But in the end, the Avars failed in their assault and retreated from Constantinople, forcing Shahrbaraz to wait for further orders from Ctesiphon. It also didn't help that Shahrbaraz received news that Shahin's army had been crushed by Heraclius, and Shahin himself had been killed, which ended up with him being whipped after death.
Well, yeah, it's messed up.
So Shahrbaraz has failed to take Constantinople. Not great.
Yep.
It's at this point he receives a letter. Now, the letter isn't for Shahrbaraz. It's for Shahrbaraz's second-in-command. And the letter says, "Dear Shahrbaraz's second-in-command, kill him and take the army to Ctesiphon. Signed, Khosrow II, King of Kings."
Yep.
Now, this letter was supposedly intercepted by the Romans, who set up a meeting with Shahrbaraz at Constantinople to show him this information. Shahrbaraz was then concerned for his safety, of course, so he changed the information in the letter to add the names of 400 officers to be killed, and this ensures the army's loyalty to him, because, hey, Khosrow's gone mad, he's going to kill us all,
Yeah.
we need to fight together.
That's smart.
In this uncertain situation, Shahrbaraz moved his army to northern Syria, where he waited to see how the situation would play out. But is this true? Did this happen? We're not sure.
I don't know. That's a pretty smart move, but like, is he that kind of man?
But did he receive the letter? Was that a real letter after all, or did the Romans just send it?
Yep.
Because one of the options is that Shahrbaraz simply had his hands full trying to hold the new Western conquest together. They needed administration, and he was the only person important enough that could provide this leadership while Khosrow was dealing with the Roman invasion. Because we're getting towards the end of the war at this point.
Yeah.
We're just a year out from the Battle of Nineveh. So Shahrbaraz is just taking control of these territories. That's all he can do. He just wants to make sure his conquests are secure. And he's not really following Khosrow's orders because, well, he's decided that Khosrow can handle it. Somebody else is there, but if Shahrbaraz leaves these territories, the Romans will just take them back and it'll be a mess to reconquer them.
Yeah.
The counter to this theory is that, well, Shahrbaraz was able to march his whole army to Constantinople and the Caucasus in the previous years, and the Romans hadn't retaken those provinces. It was fine.
Yeah.
You could argue, to be fair, that, that was a different situation. The Romans were on the back foot, but now they're attacking. It's less convincing. Instead, a suspicious element against the letter story is that it's not mentioned in sources that are chronologically closer to the action. The story comes from a much later source, itself compiled using sources from after Shahrbaraz made himself king. So maybe this is a later source saying, Shahrbaraz made himself king eventually by usurping another Sassanid.
I see.
So yeah, he probably did that during Khosrow's reign. That sort of matches up. Well, maybe in reality, Shahrbaraz was just following his orders and staying where he needed to be, and that's it. Also, these sources tend to place the letter chronologically earlier in time, which would disagree with how Shahrbaraz is behaving at Constantinople. Some people say that he received this letter before attacking Constantinople, which would not make much sense because, well, he hadn't lost yet, and, I guess the Romans could send it, but that would not really make much sense. It's a bit messy. So, how can we decide? Well, we can see that it's not unrealistic that Khosrow might want Shahrbaraz killed, because after all, he did have the corpse of Shahin desecrated because of his failure against Heraclius, so, if Shahrbaraz lost this battle at Constantinople, and also he was a political threat because he is married to Khosrow's sister and he's a relative of Bahram Chobin, so he might get some ideas, as he would eventually. So it's reasonable that you would want him gone. You might just ask his second in command, okay, just kill him really quietly, and let's restart. It's not an unreasonable thing to do. We're also told that Shahrbaraz had been insulted by the son of a minister of Khosrow, and when Shahrbaraz asked for the man to be punished, the king refused. So maybe he felt insulted, and Shahrbaraz was already feeling a bit rebellious.
Yeah.
As a last point, we don't really have any information of possible alternative motives for Shahrbaraz, so it's entirely possible that this letter was received, perhaps even with the possibility of Roman interference adjusting the text to sound more menacing. So maybe the letter was saying, no, just demote Shahrbaraz and send him back, or give him a stern talking to, and the Romans just cancelled out the demote, give stern talking to, and said kill.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, Shahrbaraz, it's terrible. Look, you can tell it's the seal of the king. This is a totally
Yeah. So the
legitimate
letter might
You
have
should really
existed,
rebel.
but yeah. The
Yeah, but it might have
contents
been
might have
tampered
been.
with.
Yeah.
Yeah. As a final option, we have that there was no letter ordering his execution. It's just that the relationship between Shahrbaraz and Khosrow had gotten so bad for several personal reasons that he simply decided to stop obeying Khosrow and just get the best deal he could from the chaos.
Mm-hmm.
So there was no need. It was just, well, Khosrow is disrespecting me and he's disrespected Shaheen after his defeat. I've just gotten defeated. Things are not going well, so I might as well just keep my army and wait until Khosrow is gone, and then we'll see. So, Sarah, what do you think it is? Which version convinces you most?
That's interesting. Would it actually make sense for Khosrow to try and get rid of this guy? Like, at this point in time.
He has a motive. I mean, at this point in time, Shahrbaraz has lost, and Khosrow is questioning his competence or his loyalty. Because Shahrbaraz has lost several battles against Heraclius, where he was greatly outnumbering the Romans, and now in Constantinople he just turned back without crossing the straits.
Yeah,
What's that about?
Yeah, okay, that is weird.
So Khosrow might be thinking he's either incompetent or he's working with the Romans.
Yeah, well,
Either way, I need him
turns
gone.
out it was both. Because
Yeah,
the Romans will
exactly.
take advantage of this. But I wonder if they were already
Yes, they
working
will.
together. So they all were like, oh, with this letter, now I have a motive to go against Khosrow.
Mm-hmm.
If this is the case, that is a wild thing. We are finally going to have a very interesting reason to give someone scheminess points at last. Because that's very smart, that like
Yes.
changing his name to several other generals just to get his army on his side. Which, it's also wild, because like, I mean, I guess he did present it as, oh, Khosrow has gone insane. Why would he be ordering
Yeah.
this? Because why would he be ordering this?
Yeah, exactly.
Do people not have any,
But,
like,
you might say, oh, well, Khosrow's clearly gone mad. Well,
Yeah.
there we go. That's why.
did people not suspect, is what I mean? Like, do you have a way to cross-examine? I mean, but also, if your general is telling you, if you try to cross-examine, you might,
It might be, and also, if there was a
your
real
loyalty
letter,
will be...
then it was authentic with the
Yeah,
seal
yeah,
of
yeah.
the king and everything, and it's just like,
Yeah, so...
I guess that's legit. I don't know. I'm just a soldier.
Yeah, no, this would work really well. Who got tasked with killing our guy?
Shahrbaraz is second in command.
Yeah, I was gonna say, because... Okay, so then the second in command was more loyal to Shahrbaraz than to Khosrow.
Well, according to the story that mentions the letter, the Romans intercepted the letter and said, oh, Shahrbaraz, we have this for you. Look, it's asking your second in command to kill you.
So did Shahrbaraz kill his second in command?
Apparently not. He just added him to the list and said, oh, look, they're going to kill you too. Oh, no.
So, that is interesting. That is interesting because then he trusted him enough. Because if someone that is my second in command gets by the king appointed with the task of killing me, I don't know if I would trust that person anymore. Even though, like, they didn't get the letter, they didn't, like, whatever. But the king somehow had enough confidence in this person.
Yeah.
And enough trust to go behind my back.
Yeah, I guess he was a useful second in command, and Shahrbaraz thought, well, why waste him? Like, he hadn't agreed to kill Shahrbaraz. He hadn't received the letter at all. So, why test his loyalty? Just scare him and make sure he joins you.
Weird and wild.
So, yeah, I see you are partial to the letter was real, and Shahrbaraz tampered with it to make it more effective for him.
Yeah.
Fair enough. And yeah, and hey, if the Romans changed a few words along the way, well, that's just up to them, isn't it?
Oh, that's just what the Romans do. What can you do? It's just,
So Shahrbaraz is now in charge of one of the last armies in the empire, and he's just sitting in Syria and waiting to see what happens with Heraclius and friends. Shahrbaraz eventually receives a letter from Khosrow asking his army to rush to Mesopotamia and defend the homeland, saying, Shahrbaraz, things are looking bad, the empire might fall, everything we fought for might be for nothing, come back and help us, for the love of Ahura Mazda, come on. But Shahrbaraz remained aloof, and he didn't reply to the letter. He just stayed and, just waited. He'll just find out what happens. Then, receiving no reply, Khosrow sent a prominent noble to negotiate with him. And what do you think the noble did? What do you think the noble told Shahrbaraz?
About?
Well, the noble was sent by Khosrow from this bad situation in Mesopotamia to ask Shahrbaraz for help and say, no, seriously, it's bad. Come and help us. What do you think the noble did?
Tell Shahrbaraz. Wait, how much does the noble know? Like, I do not have enough context because I'm like, it would be so funny if he's like, hey, do you want your chance at the throne? Come over here.
Well,
like, or
that is exactly what the noble says, Ariel.
But how does he know? Are they in contact?
Well, he was in on the coup that was going to happen for Khosrow and was like, hey, listen, Shahrbaraz, don't worry about going to save Khosrow. He's doomed anyway. We have a coup planned. And hey, you might get your chance soon, so remember me, random unnamed noble number 7.
Like,
I will be important, I'm sure.
Someone needs, like, there has been stuff talked about.
I mean, the nobles are always talking to each other.
Yeah, exactly.
If there's something shady, they're doing it. So, Shahrbaraz decides, you know what? I think it's a good plan to just sit here and enjoy myself. We'll see you in a while. And, well, soon news arrives from Ctesiphon that Khosrow was overthrown and a peace was concluded with the Romans.
But you know, what a coincidence. What,
Brilliant.
How did that happen?
P.S. In the peace treaty, Kavad has given back all the lands that Shahrbaraz has fought for the last 30 years for. Hope you're cool with that. Shahrbaraz thinks, why? I mean, his army is the one that is threatening the Romans. That is the only army left in the West. So that's the only leverage that the Empire has is Shahrbaraz and his army. Why wasn't he consulted about this? Why did nobody fight harder to get these lands back? Was it just because they were scared and threatened by Heraclius? Is that all? I mean, Shahrbaraz has beaten Heraclius a few times. He can take him if he needs to. So it's time to threaten him enough that he gives more land back, because what's going on here?
It's so funny to me that this guy either gets tricked by the Romans to think that Khosrow considers him enough of a threat to have him killed off, or he knows, like, he gets the letter and he's like, we're not doing that. And then he's like, okay, this is my chance. Like, all that I can do after being threatened by the king is to try and usurp him. And then he, like, gets this noble who's like, oh, we're in danger, help. Also, might be the chance, everything is aligning. And he's like, okay, cool. We'll put the empire in danger because I want the empire. Even though, like, then you are gonna have to deal with the danger afterwards. But, priorities. And then,
things are still going reasonably well now.
While he's, like, planning all of this stuff, he gets news that, like, hey, by the way, someone killed the king.
Oh, okay.
And took over. Or, didn't take over, but, what happened. Which is, like, he died and his son is the heir, but also there's a regent because it's a child. Who killed... No, he just died, right. He just died, or it was the stepmother...
And Kavad just got the plague, yes.
Yeah.
Or the stepmother murdered him.
Yeah, either that, or he was killed by Kavad, and Kavad immediately died. Yeah. I forgot.
Yeah.
So, which is surprising that Kavad then, like, tried to do a good job. As, But, I don't know. I just imagine his brain must be like, why is everything happening this week?
It is a complicated period, Ariel. This is a decade in which millennia are happening.
So he's like, I'll do better. I'll do you want better. I'll kill the child. Wait, so Kavad was the regent, right?
Kavad was the guy who killed his father. It was the one who concluded the bad peace.
Yeah, Kavad was the father of the child emperor.
Correct.
So Khosrow dies. Kavad gets to power. Kavad dies. There's a regent.
Yes.
And all of this in a span of like a year. Well, a bit
all this
more.
In a span of 8 months.
Oh my...
Yes.
No? What? Not even a year?
This is 8 months, yes.
Oh my god.
Nope.
Like, I am freaking out. I can only imagine how this guy feels who's trying to, like, move the
If you're
strings.
living through it, it's like, oh my
Trying
goodness.
to move the strings, and literally the strings keep being yanked out of his hands. This is so funny.
Yeah.
It's so funny.
You're trying to manipulate things, but no, it's a mess. It's a lot. So Shahrbaraz, seeing the chaos, thinks, this is very complicated and I can't really figure it all out. I'll just wait and refuse to acknowledge the peace treaty, and I'll just chill and wait for somebody to come to me. Okay? Good.
That's so funny. I'm just...
But well, the Romans want this peace to be concluded, so Heraclius himself goes to meet with Shahrbaraz and convince him to abide by the previous treaty. But in exchange, he was allowed to extend the Sassanid border to the Euphrates, while receiving support from the Romans. The support was mostly moral, like they recognized Shahrbaraz as king, but there is an implied idea that they could do what Maurice had done 40 years ago, and put him on the throne, and hey, they might owe the Romans, and the cycle keeps turning. The two rulers at last met. Shahrbaraz also had one of his sons, Nicetas, baptized as a Christian, while his daughter was baptized as Nike and given in marriage to a son of Heraclius. As we said last time, Nicetas would be going with Romans as a valuable hostage and the possible future Christian king of kings, because he's recognized as the heir of Shahrbaraz by the Romans, so that's pretty intense. You might have two Christian empires in the world. That would be surprising. And yeah, as I mentioned last time, Nicetas would show up as a Roman general during the Battle of Yarmouk a bit under a decade later, so he'll be around. Other sources even claim that Shahrbaraz himself was a Christian in the first place, but I personally find that a bit unlikely because, yes, Christianity was tolerated under Khosrow II, but not in the case of somebody converting out of Zoroastrianism, and not where it would be politically dangerous, so it's possible, but a pinch of salt to take with that. He may have been the first Christian king of kings, but he may have just had a Christian heir, and it's close, but a slight difference there. So at last, Shahrbaraz gathers his forces, and he abandons the western lands, and decides that he wants to march on Ctesiphon and make himself king of kings. Yes, he's abandoned all these western lands he's fought for so long, but he has concluded a more positive peace treaty with the Romans that has extended Persian land by quite a bit. At the same time, he's the brother-in-law of Khosrow II. He's an adult and a war hero. That probably makes him more legitimate than baby Ardashir III.
Fair.
So he's just going to march on Ctesiphon. So he goes there, but as we said last time, he only has 6,000 men and couldn't properly capture it. So he resorted to negotiations with two important nobles inside the city. One of them was the commander of the southern armies, and another was the man who had helped orchestrate the overthrow of Khosrow II and had become the leader of the Persian faction at court, which was opposed to the Parthian faction that most non-Sassanid nobles were a part of. So there are two factions, one that's pro-royal family and one that's pro some random guy as long as he's good at the job. So Shahrbaraz offered them lands and titles and power and money, and they said, yeah, that's brilliant. Let's betray this good regent and this child. Let's open the gates of the city. So Shahrbaraz entered the city and began a purge of all of his enemies. Hooray! His soldiers ransacked through the streets, killing and maiming anybody who was a threat to Shahrbaraz, killing the regent of Ardashir III, and then the boy king himself at last. Woo. So on the 27th of April, 630, Shahrbaraz was officially crowned as King of Kings.
Okay. You got it.
How do you think this will go now, Serial? Based on his track record so far, how well do you think Shahrbaraz is going to do? Because he's not unskilled.
No, he seems like a good military man, right?
Yes.
What are we dealing with at the moment? So at least he has an army. Important, good thing.
He has an army, yes. It's not massive, but he has an army.
An army that's loyal to him.
Which is important. So we need to deal with a few things. We need to deal with the aftermath of the plague and the famine that's still kind of ongoing, still burning through the surviving population. It's not great. We need to deal with the economic instability, with the political legitimacy instability. There's also one other army in the Empire, and that's in the east, defending against the nomads. And that army has kind of been doing the Shahrbaraz thing, where it's just been sitting aloof, watching what'll happen. So Shahrbaraz needs to convince them, no, trust me, I'm legitimate enough. You should follow me. You should follow my orders. And also, we just need to make sure that the Romans don't try anything funny. Because yes, we've concluded a generous peace, but let's be careful.
Mm-hmm.
So do you think he has the skills to deal with all this?
I'm not sure. I was mostly asking because I'm like, okay, do we have like actual military issues at the moment? Like, do we need
There are some Arab
to
raids.
defend our...
And there used to be some nomad raids from the Caucasus, but Shahrbaraz has sort of scared them away. So
Yeah,
there's only just a few Arab raids which are annoying but not life-threatening.
Yeah, so it's mostly not that. So is he good at diplomacy, actually, or anything? Because, like, yeah, I guess let's see. I don't know. I mean, he also wasn't doing great in his battles, but it might have been because he was actually just in deals with the Romans. And I feel like the Romans are gonna, if that's true, and we're, being played by the Romans or playing with the Romans, then they're just gonna get their fingers all up in our business, which might solve the issues, like might solve the tensions with them, but also it might like have them help us not be destroyed from the face of the earth, but also means that we are giving power to them, essentially. Like, we will be a puppet king.
I mean, to be fair, we did conclude a pretty good peace with them, so they've given us more land than we've had so far. Like, if this war had been like a normal war, this would be an amazing peace treaty.
Yeah.
It's the problem that we got so close to the sun that's like,
Yeah. In comparison, just bad.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm very curious to see. Like, honestly, I don't know. It might go well. I don't think this man is particularly gifted at diplomacy. And I think that's what we need at the moment. Diplomacy and a good hand for, like, stabilizing things. So,
well, yeah, you're not wrong. We'll see if he is the man for the job. So, he is king of kings. Well, first of all, news travels to the Roman court where his son Nicetas is recognized as heir to the throne, leading to a possible Christianization of Iran in the next generation as soon as he succeeds. And, Shahrbaraz is in his 60s, so it might happen sooner rather than later. And now on the throne, Shahrbaraz took some time to rectify some old grudges. He is said to have crucified a noble on the church as a reply for an insult he had received from him during the reign of Khosrow. And according to some, the refusal of Khosrow to punish this man is what started the rift between the two rulers. So he's just dealing with things at court. And also, he decided to purge a bunch of nobles and royals at court to make sure that nobody would threaten his new power and that everything would be fine. His family has traditional enemies. He wants to make sure everything is nice and clean. But Shahrbaraz is not a Sassanid, and yet he sits on the throne. So we get some omens here about his lack of divine right to rule, because Al-Tabari tells us that he had terrible stomach cramps while sitting on the throne, and was forced to pass water in a bowl in front of the throne, which shows that no man of non-royal blood can handle its awesome power. So don't go sitting on thrones that don't belong to you, you will get a tummy ache.
That's probably a good piece of wisdom, for anybody.
Yeah, exactly. If omens come and tell you shouldn't sit on a throne, then maybe you shouldn't. We then come to the 9th of June, 630, when Shahrbaraz is attending a public ceremony where he was reviewing the royal guard. And a certain noble that you'll want to remember, a man called Farrukh Hormizd, which was the son of Bendoy, remember from the early Khosrow days, one of the uncles?
Faintly.
The two uncles that rebelled and did a whole thing and sort of tried to puppet Khosrow II, that whole thing. This Farrukh Hormizd is one of their sons, and he was also a cousin to Ardashir III, who had been executed recently, and also one of the bodyguards of the king. So Shahrbaraz is reviewing the royal guard and trying to make sure everything is in order because the regime has just recently changed. You want to make sure everything is stable. Well, at one point, Sariel, can you guess what happened?
I legitimately don't know anymore what to answer to this question.
Well, Sariel, while Shahrbaraz was riding along in front of his royal guards, he passed in front of this Farrukh Hormizd. And Farrukh Hormizd decided to, quite simply, take his spear and stab Shahrbaraz in the chest, killing him instantly.
Oh my god. Wait, who was this person? My brain did not process.
He was the cousin of Ardashir III, the member of another noble family, and the son of Bendoy, who had also claimed to be king a while ago. And he was
Lol.
one of the royal bodyguards. It was like, stab.
That is so funny. Choose your bodyguards better.
Exactly, and make sure you didn't kill their family members recently.
Yeah.
The conspirators then tied a rope around Shahrbaraz's leg and dragged his body around the parade ground
Whoa.
to show what happens to non-Sassanids who take the throne.
Whoa.
They were not arrested, suggesting that their actions had been authorized by somebody.
Ha, interesting.
All this placed the crown at the feet of one of the only remaining Sassanids around. The most unlikely of people to succeed. A woman.
Oh?
A daughter of Khosrow II called Boran. Who will not be our next episode because
come
of
on.
reasons. But she'll be coming on in a bit.
Woo.
So that is the life of Shahrbaraz. What'd you think?
This is wild. Oh my god. What even?
What even indeed. He didn't do too great. He got murdered very quickly, and that wasn't fun.
No. It wasn't, it was alright, I guess.
Now, Sarah, can you imagine if I ask you, what do you think happens to the legitimacy of the crown once a child was overthrown by a usurper who was overthrown by a woman? How do you think everybody's taking this?
Oof.
Things are going to get chaotic, and next
Yeah, I
episode
bet.
is going to be interesting because I struggled at deciding who to cover. It took me a while to be like, so who's next? Who's there?
Because of course, how is this going to be clear cut and easy to follow? There's 30 things happening at any time.
Yeah, we've had 2 purges in the course of 2 years. It's a whole thing, Ariel. It's been a long time for the inhabitants of the Sassanid Empire.
Help.
They're not doing great. They would like literally to go back to 10, 20 years ago and everything was good. But no. We'll see if fast forwarding 20 years will be good for them or not, because the only way past is through. So we'll see how they do.
Damn.
But very well, Cyril. Are you ready to rate this man and see how he did?
Let's do it.
Let's go.
Woo.
Our first category is final moments. How interesting was his death? Reviewing the royal guards and just being stabbed
amazing,
by one of them.
incredible. 13 out
That
of
was a
10.
very good death. That was just fun because it's just so anticlimactic. He's just like,
Yeah.
look at my guards. Oh, they look nice. They have all parade armor. It's like, stab. Oh no. Oh no, my heart.
One of them had ill intentions. Guess he trusted too much. He wasn't aware of what was actually going on.
I guess he was like, the royal guards are probably loyal. And it was like, oh wait, but I recently killed the king. Oh no, wait, my hubris.
Yeah, oh no, my hubris! It dropped all over.
Damn.
Yes, I know that hubris stories are there to warn us. Yes, I know that everyone is a victim of said stories. But if it was I surely wouldn't make this mistake. Because I might be better than all of them before me. Maybe even better than, dare I say it, the gods themselves.
Hey, Sarah, if you don't try to overthrow the gods, what are you going to do?
Yeah, I mean,
You'll never succeed.
What have you even done with your life then, huh?
So, good death, I would argue. I think it's
Yeah.
funny. I'm between an 8 and a 9. It's very good. It's not the best death. I think that's still Khosrow II, because my man deserves it. But I think Shahrbaraz has a good contender.
Yep. Agreed.
What are you thinking? Are you going for the higher or for the lower?
I think I'm going for the higher. It is so silly in a way, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like oversight on his part, sort of. It's just. He lasted 3 days. Literally, he got the crown and immediately got killed. I'm gonna go for an 8.
Times.
It's so funny. It's just. I don't know. It's such a learning moment to me. How could you overlook this?
Yeah, your bodyguard's my dude. Why?
Yeah.
I will also go for an 8. I think it's worth it. Yeah.
God. So funny.
So with an 8 and an 8, he gets an 8 out of 10 for final moments. Our next category is battle hardness. How good was he at war and fighting? Well, this is his main skill, really. So he joined the army young, he rose through the ranks, he managed to be appointed as leader of the southern armies. That was pretty good. Then during the initial phase of the war, he managed to conquer Edessa, which was a very important fortified city. He took Antioch, which was very important. He managed to defeat Heraclius twice, just outside Anatolia. Brilliant career. Then he captured Damascus, he captured Jerusalem, he captured Alexandria and all of Egypt. So he managed to make all these great conquests that Khosrow supervised, but he's the one actually on the ground doing the work. Yeah. So that's very impressive. On the upside, he also, when he was going for his coup, he managed to defeat some nomads that were raiding, so that's pretty good. And then he managed to capture the city of Ctesiphon through trickery, which you can decide if you want to consider it more of a scheminess thing or more of a battle hardness thing, because it is military tricks. So see what you like. On the downside, though, he got defeated by Heraclius a couple of times in the Caucasus during later campaigns. He had to flee his tent naked and afraid. And then when he tries to take Constantinople, he fails ultimately. To be fair, he didn't really have much of an opportunity to fight while attacking Constantinople. He was mostly just cheerleading from the Asian side because they didn't have good enough ships to cross. So he was just saying, come on, Avars, do your thing, fly over the walls.
Yeah.
But he didn't really contribute that much. And yeah, he's called the Boar of the Empire. That's a pretty cool title to have.
Yeah, sure.
You're clearly good at your job if you're called the Boar of the Empire.
It was pathetic, though. Like his attempt at reigning.
It was an attempt at power, yes. Yeah. But,
but
as
until
a general,
then,
he
I guess
did a reasonably good job.
He did really well.
Yeah. So how would you rate this battle hardness? Just to remind you, we gave Khosrow II 6 each. And that was considering, all the rise and fall and the fact that it wasn't him personally doing it. Shahrbaraz is doing it personally, and he has a few more victories under his belt and a few less defeats. So how would you want to rate that?
I guess 7 or 8. He did have a few defeats, but he was mostly a good general. That was the whole gist of this.
I think it's just so impressive how much he managed to take over that I'm probably going for an 8. Because he conquered 2/3 of the Roman Empire.
That is fair, yeah.
It wasn't just him, to be fair, but he was in charge, and yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I feel like an 8 is
that sounds reasonable.
Reasonable score. Okay. So with an 8 and an 8, he gets a 16 out of 20 for battle hardness. Our next category is scheminess. How good was he at plots and manipulations? Well, we have a few elements here. We have, first of all, the letter thing. That's the big one. Because depending on what you believe, what you trust, Shahrbaraz was either tricked by the Romans with a fake letter and that caused the empire to collapse, or Shahrbaraz got a letter saying, oh no, you're screwed, and decided to just manipulate it to say, oh no, all of us are screwed, so we all need to work together against Khosrow, because otherwise we'll all lose.
It's our problem.
Exactly, it's just all of us together. So that's the very big one. Then we have the fact that he might have been conspiring with the Romans. To be fair, that's many negative sources, but Khosrow might have believed, look at him, he was brilliant at taking all this territory, and now he's just failing constantly. What's this about? Yeah. So maybe that was some collaboration with the Romans, who knows? I mean, yeah, his children were eventually baptized with Heraclius as their godfather.
Yeah.
That's weird.
Yeah.
Scheminess, he then, I think it might be more shock factor, but he didn't obey orders of the crown when he could have, and he just stayed back to see what happened. And then when he got to Ctesiphon, he didn't have to take it militarily. He just had to convince and schmooze with some nobles and say, hey, trust me, open the gates, and I'll be a great king. So it is pretty good. I wouldn't say it's the highest scheminess ever.
No.
But significant.
But yeah, we haven't had much of this, honestly, in general on this podcast.
Yeah. Something very similar, which is his relative, is Bahram Chobin, where he might have faked the thing where, oh no, the king is insulting me, look at this, I need to march on Ctesiphon now.
That's a good point. Either he faked it, or the Romans
you gave
faked
him a
it,
4 for
or
that. Yes.
he just took the opportunity. But it seemed like he really wanted to do this anyways.
Yeah.
I don't think... Yeah. I think that the letter was real for sure.
Okay, fair.
And
And he
the
just
king might
modified
have-
it.
Well, I mean, or not. Like, I meant more in the sense of I think he definitely took this opportunity to, like, tamper with the letter. I don't know if he
Yes.
just made it up or if he actually received a letter, but Khosrow did have a reason to want to get rid of him. So
Yeah.
the only thing that didn't convince me is him leaving his second in command by his side. But also, knowing how he died, I guess he just is not very smart
He
in
might
that
just
department.
not be a good judge of character, yes.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. How schemy do you think that is? How much do you think that's worth?
Like a 6 or 7? Because it might have been the Romans more than him.
6 or 7? Ooh, going high up. I'm more
I
on
mean-
6, honestly. I think it's interesting, but it's not that far.
He also, like, how he approached other victories and other things like this feels very schemy to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know.
But-
Entirely.
Then I guess maybe a 6 makes sense.
Oh,
Yeah.
you're also going for a 6 then?
Yeah, I think a 7
Okay,
is
fair.
too high up.
So with a 6 and a 6, he gets a 12 out of 20 for scheminess. Our next category is shock factor. How shocking was this man? Well,
A little bit.
you know, he's done some stuff.
Yeah.
So whatever happened, he disobeyed the orders of his king when he was a general. Whether he was working with the Romans, whether he was deciding he knew better, whether it was because he had received this letter and had manipulated it, whatever reason, he disobeyed his king's orders. And when Khosrow said, "You're our last chance to save the empire, please just rush to Mesopotamia and save us," Shahrbaraz decided, nope, I'll just stay here and wait. Let's see what happens. That's pretty intense.
Mm-hmm.
Also shocking, when peace is made, he also just stays and waits. You
Yeah.
know, Kavad II makes peace, and he's just like, what peace? No, I'm just chilling.
True.
So that's also weird. He then has his children, his son and heir Nicetas, baptized as a Christian by the Roman emperor. That's never happened before. And he himself might be a Christian, which is
Yeah.
also big change.
Yeah.
Doesn't show any signs of being a Christian, but doesn't get much of a chance to do anything. So yeah. So that's a lot of it. Then he overthrows the legitimate king. He is a usurper from a different dynasty. That's also pretty big. Something that Bahram Tobin had a lot of.
Hmm.
And then he kills a child king. That's not cool. Maybe don't.
Well, he did what he had to do, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, he didn't have to do it. He did what he wanted to do.
Yeah, that's fair. Could have also not. Well, yeah, he had to.
I mean, he had to if he wanted to become king. If he
Yeah,
wanted to.
exactly. That's what I mean. That's what I mean.
Yeah. He could have been, I want to be a loyal subject.
Yeah,
Let's see
he
a
could have.
little Arthur
No,
grow up and be
obviously,
grateful.
he could have chosen to not usurp the throne. But
Yes. Yes. If he wanted the throne, then yes, he had to kill the baby. But maybe let's not make decisions that force us to kill babies.
he also got. Assuming the royal letter was real, he did get threatened by the king, though. So it might be a bit too late to.
It was the child's grandfather. It's like, I mean, you know.
Yeah, but I feel like by then he had decided he would take the throne. He could have backed down.
It could be. It could be.
He could have backed
He
down.
could have backed down, but maybe, yes, he already decided, you know what, with the chaos going on, Kavad died, there's no legitimate heirs anymore, I might as well. Fair. And then another shock factor, as soon as he gets into Ctesiphon, purge time. He
Yeah.
kills a bunch of people. He crucifies a guy on a church. That's not fun.
No. You should
So-
not do that.
And also, depends how much you want it to be just, it's part of being a soldier that atrocities are committed. He is said to have committed atrocities in his conquests. To be fair to him, these are sources that depict Khosrow as the Antichrist and say, oh no, they're just terrible gratuitously. They will just kill everybody because they can. While the documents we have say, I mean, yeah, it was tough when they came in, but we're cool now.
Yeah.
No, it depends how highly you want to rate that. And yeah, I think that's the most of the shock factor I can think of right now. Unless something stood out to you especially that I didn't mention.
Not really.
And so how much would you rate this? How shocking did you find all this?
Like maybe a 5? Like how many individual things did we mention?
So there is the purge plus crucifixion.
Yeah.
There is the killed child king. There is be a usurper.
Yeah.
There is refuse the orders that could have saved the empire.
That one, big one.
That's intense. That's just like, you could have just done it.
The
but
other
no.
ones is like, I've seen it before. It's not cool, but like I've seen it before. That one?
Yeah. Then he had his son and daughter baptized as Christians by the Roman emperor, and he may have been a Christian himself.
Yeah. So I guess a 4 or 5 in total.
I think I'll go for a 6.
Wow.
Honestly. I think altogether it's enough that it's.
I will stay at the 5.
Did his own thing. Yeah, fair enough. So with a 6 and a 5, he gets an 11 out of 20 for shock factor. Our next category is Aaron Shine. How good was he for the Empire in general and Iran in particular? Well, he was quite good as a general. Like, he expanded the Empire, almost doubling it. That's pretty good. That's great. But then he also lost some of the battles, and it's kind of his fault that Heraclius didn't meet a second battle. He just stayed there and waited just to see what happened, knowing he could save the Empire, but he wasn't going to give Khosrow the satisfaction.
Yeah.
That's not great. He disrupts the peace with Rome, but by doing that, he gets a better peace treaty, which expands the empire, so.
Feels like a lucky thing to me.
Yeah, it's weird.
It could have gone the other way, too.
Very much so. He then overthrows an unstable dynasty to try and put his own on the throne.
Yeah. It's not bad.
You know, that could go either way. He gives his son and heir as a hostage to the Romans. Never been a good move so far.
Nope. I've seen that before, and why?
Yep, not fun. And then, in dying so quickly, the legitimacy of the Empire is absolutely shattered.
Yeah.
We will see in the next episode, but the Empire is just, like, it was barely holding together under Ardashir III. Now that he is gone, there will be this brief interregnum with Boran for a while, but that's just going to be fire and flames, and the Empire's, it's the end times.
Yep. My dude, like, how do you mess up this bad?
It's really quite bad. Like, if he had helped the Empire, we would be in such a better place. But he decided to actively antagonize whoever was in charge until he became in charge, and then he failed miserably at that.
Yeah. It's like, I can do better. Turns out he could not.
No, absolutely not. Demonstrably, he failed at that.
What a humbling experience. What do you think he was thinking when he was dying there in front of his guard?
Yeah. Thinking, oh no, so it looks like being a king is hard.
Oh no.
Wait, I didn't want this job.
Is this it?
It was easier being a general. Yep.
Ridiculous. Like, truly.
So, yeah, I think this is so bad. I don't know. See, I'm thinking, is it worth giving him a 1? Because, yes, he did a slightly better peace treaty. Yes, he did expand the empire.
Yeah, I was
going to
say he conquered some stuff, but we did give him points for that in the military.
Yeah. I think for the benefit of the
hardness.
empire, things are so bad, I'm just 1 or a 0. What are you thinking?
Then I'm thinking a 0. Because, like, my dude.
Then I'm going to give him a 1 just to point out that he did at least try a little bit.
That's fair.
Just an I participated trophy, that's all.
Man, this is rough.
So yeah, with a 1 and a 0, he gets a 1 out of 20 for Aaron Shine, which is worse than Baby Ardashir III, and the worst score we've had
he
since Khosrow
destabilized
the
things
Usurper,
further.
who did nothing.
Like,
yes,
Yeah.
exactly. He's just, God, he's terrible. Our next category is Face of Faces. What do you think this man looked like?
let me...
And Sarah, I don't have a crown for you.
Oh, I
because of
wonder why.
reasons.
Yeah. He lasted, like, what, 3 hours? Record.
We'll get to find out soon.
Speed running.
Any percent royalty. 0 is a percent. Okay, so Sarah has finished their drawing. Let me pick it up and I'll describe it to you all. Fair.
Yeah.
Good. I like it.
Low effort, but
Yeah, it's pretty good. So what we have here is a row of soldiers with spears, all of them slowly fading off into the distance, ready for inspection. And out of the row comes a pair of hands, thrusting a spear deep into the back of Shahrbaraz, who sits kneeling, falling from his horse, dying, just in front of the army he was inspecting. He wears the typical robes. He has long hair but no crown, yet only a little diadem. And the blood is pooling at his back. Things will not end well. His 1,000-year dynasty ends after about 1,000 hours. At best, probably less.
Mm-hmm.
So, there we go, Cyril. Thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome.
If any of you would like to see this drawing, you can go to our Discord if you're a patron. You can go to the episode notes in the description or on our website in Cyril's portrait gallery. Now let me show Cyril what he actually looked like. The only coin you find when Googling Shahrbaraz. Behold, cast your eyes upon his majesty.
At this point, it's starting to lose, it's starting to look less like a drawing and more like a hieroglyph on the way to becoming just letters.
That's fair.
Just character at this point. Like a kanji. It's like you can infer that it's like a person, right, with a crown and profile.
Mm-hmm.
But that's it.
Yeah, the crown looks a lot like an Ardashir III crown, so I'm guessing they just took an Ardashir III coin and slapped a beard on him and said, yeah, this'll do.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not a great coin. It's weirdly square. I think it's because it's a copper coin, so it's not as big as others, but yeah.
It's very fun.
It's not great. Yeah, I like that he has a very visible mustache. I will say that in his favor.
Sure. Mustache and beard.
Very neat.
But,
Yeah. But otherwise, it's just like, it's alright, I guess. It's not. It exists, is one thing you could say about it.
It's probably from the period.
Go for like a 1. It is from the period, yeah. Surprising they managed to print coins out that fast, but
why? Why even I fully believe.
Yeah, they thought it was going to go for a while.
Oh, so they started early, I guess.
Yeah, they're like, all right, new king, let's start minting coins. Oh no, what do you mean?
What do you mean?
Let's change the coins again, damn it.
Whoever worked at the coin factory, I'm sure they were having a time too.
Yeah, it's either great business or a terrible year at work when it's like, what do you mean they've changed again? Wait, why?
Yeah.
Why have you changed? It's like the later Liz Trust years. Good times. But anyway, how would you rate this? I'm going to go for a 1. I can't really see
same.
any. The fact that it exists is enough, and that's all. Yeah. Okay, very nice.
It's cool that it's square. It's cool that it's a very simplified version, but
So, with a 1 and a 1, he gets a 0.5 out of 5 for Face of Faces. Our next category is lengthiness. How long do you think this man reigned?
3 hours.
Slightly more. I will say, he reigned for, well, let me count them. He reigned for 43 days.
Okay.
Even less than Xerxes II.
More than a month.
Yes, from the 27th of April, 630, to the 9th of June, 630.
Damn.
Didn't get to see summer, but, it's cool, I guess.
That's
good
wild.
to know. Wasn't too warm, is alright.
Wild, wild, wild. Truly.
So take a month and a half, divide that by 10 years, and you get 0.013 out of 5 for lengthiness. Which brings us to the final score, which is a grand total of 48.5 out of 100, which places him in the very respectable 40s club.
Unbelievable.
Where he is above Vologases IV, just above, and under Musa. So he is doing quite well, but he beats Xerxes I and Mithridates I, which is very impressive. Which means that we have a bit of a discussion now when we ask, is he commandery enough? Is he short-lived enough? Is he child murdery enough to be a Shahanshah, or is he just a Shahanna?
I mean, he was incredibly
Because he
pathetic,
does
but-
have merits. It's funny how quickly he died. It is interesting that he did the letter thing. He did conquer 2/3 of the Roman Empire.
Yeah, true.
That was pretty cool. He had the whole letter falsification and usurpation. That's pretty interesting. And then he was king for like 10 minutes on a Sunday and
Yeah.
was killed.
No.
So, do you think it might be worth just an
No.
honorary, it's so funny it's worth it, or just...
No. I actually
no?
don't. Nah. It wasn't that cool. Sorry.
So, despite having a rather high score, fine, I will go with you. I could have been swayed either way. I think
It
there
would have
are
been very
merits.
funny, but no.
Very well. All right, then sorry, Shahrbaraz, you are Shahana. You could go off into the desert and meet Ardashu III and explain to his small little baby eyes why you had to kill him to just be murdered 43 days later. Was it worth it, Shahrbaraz? Was it worth it? And that brings us to the end of our episode, so we hope you had a good time. We hope you enjoyed the Empire slowly unraveling. It will speed up its unraveling in the next episode,
Yay.
where we will be covering, well, I might as well tell you, we will be covering Shapur V, Shapuri Shahrbaraz, the son of Shahrbaraz.
Right.
Because Boran will rule for a bit, but she comes back later, so we'll get to cover her afterwards.
Okay, exciting.
And we get to see how the Empire does. Will it do well? Will it just burn and crash and be destroyed? We have 4 episodes left, Serial. 4 episodes left. We're almost on the podium.
Oh my god.
We're soon to see Yazdegerd III at last. He's going to be here, and we'll see how well he does. Does he start a new age? We'll find
Been
out.
saying his name for so long.
Exactly. We get to figure out what his deal is.
Hell yeah.
And yeah, if you would like to support our podcast, there are many ways to do so. You could join our Patreon, like our new patron, Leland Clark. Thank you very much for joining. Where you have a bunch of extra episodes on tons of people who were around the Iranian world and just gave interesting contributions to the side of our story, and were still quite interesting to learn about. We are going to cover at the end of this month Artabanus IV, who was the last Parthian ruler, which we didn't cover because he didn't control Persia, and he has some interesting stories. He interacts with Caracalla. There's a wedding involved.
Oh,
Tune in to find out. If instead you'd rather not support us monetarily, that's fine, but we'd appreciate if you could give us a review on your podcast app of choice. Just telling people that you enjoy us, and hey, we're getting close to the end. If you want to binge listen to everything, you can do it now. We have like 90-ish hours of content for you to listen to. If you have a very long
Tis the
commute,
time.
you can now
Yeah.
listen to everything all at the same time. So go for it. Tell other people that the end is nigh.
who's sad about it?
Yeah.
I'm sad
see.
about it.
Yeah. We've done the journey. We'll get to revisit it all in the rounds. The rounds will be fun.
I'm excited.
And yeah, in that case, without any further ado, we hope you have a lovely week, and we'll see you next time. Goodbye.
Bye.